Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Lazy Podcast. I say ladies and gentlemen, but no respectable lady will listen to this podcast. I'm only joking. If you're a lady listening to the podcast, welcome. The humor in this podcast is as dry as Arsenal's season so far. Right, let's get into it. In this episode, I want to talk about movie villains. What happened to movie villains? And where are all the good villains? It looks like every new movie that comes out, they have a shitty protagonist and even shittier villain. Where are the Darth Vaders? Where are the Jokers? Where are the Lokis of the movies? Where are the Hans Grubers of the movies? Where are the Hannibal Lecters of the movies? It looks like every new villain that they come up with is like a crybaby or a pathetic little man, because obviously he has to be weaker to make the protagonist look better, even though the protagonist might be a plank of wood on his or her own. So what makes a good villain? A villain should make you question or whether the protagonist is right or whether he is right or she is right, the villain. It makes you want to question or makes you want to see his point of view. For example, Hans Gruber, iconic villain at this point in Die Hard and played by an iconic actor as well. I'm going to count to 3. There will not be a 4. Possibly the most perfect combination of voice and face put to screen for a villain. Alan Rickman brought something so special to Hans Gruber, a cultured, conniving villain who could impress and change the situation even when his original plan was compromised by a pesky, barefoot New York PD policeman, Bruce Willis, John McClane. Gruber sees himself into sign history. It doesn't hurt that he was given some truly memorable dialogue, obviously, by the writers. His delivery is amazing as well and so precise. And his theatrical training, he did theater for a very long time, and it just shows on that movie on how good his performance is. And all great villains need a noble defeat, a few of them get to fall the way Gruber goes, because most of them, they just go like fucking they never existed. Or take, for example, the most iconic villain of all time, the most memorable, Darth Vader. Everyone knows who Darth Vader is, and it's so iconic at this point, 40-50 years in the making, that is so menacing. Like his presence alone, they made sure in that first movie, 1977, that when he shows up, he's tall, he's menacing, he doesn't mess around. When someone tries to undermine him, he force chokes them. There is no messing around with Darth Vader. No one gets to make fun of him and get away with it. It doesn't exist. His voice is scary, and the fact that you cannot see his face is even scarier. It's all about setting the tone and making sure that your villain is menacing and making sure that your villain needs to be taken seriously by the audience. And if you take, for example, a different villain like Kylo Ren, most recently, the first time we see Kylo Ren, he's amazing. He stops a blaster with a force, and he's you can see he's menacing. He wears black. He's a helmet. You can see that this guy doesn't mess around. Then when he meets Oscar Isaac's character in the prison, and he tries to interrogate him, and then Oscar Isaac's character makes fun of him, we as an audience think that Kylo Ren is not someone to be taken seriously. It's sort of like the audience is making fun of him. That's why, for many reasons, Kylo Ren didn't work, but that is one of the reasons. If you also think of Thanos in the MCU, probably the best villain that they've done, and they've constantly shit out very bad movies for years and years, the MCU has, and I've given them a lot of criticism for that, because if a movie is shit, then I'm gonna say it's shit, and they've done that with Captain Marvel, with Ant-Man and the Wasp, and so many more movies like that. But one thing they did great and they did amazing at is having Thanos and having his motives clear. you understand throughout Infinity War, probably the best MCU movie, you understand his motives, you understand why he's doing everything. It's pretty clear that his planet has been destroyed because there was too many people to feed, and in his mind, the brilliant thing. In his mind, he's a good guy, that he's gonna save the universe, because for years he's going around and he doesn't have the Infinity Stones, and for years he's going around and killing half the planet, and he has to choose on his own, and then he thinks that with this device it will all be done automatically and he will just save the universe. But in theory, that sounds like something that would save the universe. If you have half the mouths to feed, then probably that won't make civilizations disappear or destroy themselves, and all of that. He's not doing it because he's evil. He's not doing it because that's what the plot demands. He's doing it because he has been through that. His planet got destroyed and he has seen what can happen. It's not like he's doing it because the plot or the writers said so. It's clear motives. That's what makes a good villain. That's what the difference is between a shitty villain and a great villain like Thanos is. Another example is Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. Anthony Hopkins made Hannibal a legend. Most great villains are defined by their actions, but Hopkins' stillness is what's so unsettling. You have Jodie Foster staring through the glass. He peels away her layer with softly spoken words. Like, Lecter's horrific acts are more implied than shown, and that is the difference here. There is nothing scarier than our imagination. The scariest monster that you can think of, that there is nothing scarier than our imagination. So this always works for horror movies. The best horror movies are those that they don't planned out show you the monster, because that would make sense. If they showed you the monster in the first 5 minutes, then that would just destroy all the drama and all the anticipation of what is this monster like, because then you're not scared of it anymore if you've seen it. That's what John Krasinski's and Emily Blunt's A Quiet Place in 2018 did wrong, in my opinion. They showed the monster in the first 10 minutes, and then it was still scarier, but the tension would have been so much better, and so much more tension if you hadn't seen the monster, because they say that there's this monster that it can hear you, so you cannot make any noise, and we haven't seen it. It travels very fast and all of that, very scary. But then they show it to you, and then you're like, oh shit, it's a big CGI monster. Ooh, so scary. But enough about good villains. The bad villains. Recently, there's a spree of bad villains. Well, there's a spree of bad movies, but also they usually have a bad villain in them. What happened to movies? Is it because movies and Hollywood in general have gone a more quote-unquote progressive way, and they look more to have a social message and to make social commentary, so much so that they forget to make a good movie? Yes, and no. I don't think it's that easy to just say, oh yeah, they're more concerned about that, even though they are. Movies have always had a social message, social commentary. So if you think about a movie that I recently watched, I haven't watched, it's called Lion, directed by Garth Davis. He once said, right, I've got his quote here: "Filmmaking is not a job, but a social responsibility for me." Lion tells the story of an Indian boy adopted by a wealthy Australian couple who sets out to find his real family after 25 years. 6 Academy Award nominations and 140 million box office hit later, Davis's film is evidence that commercial acclaim and social responsibility can coexist, right? The concept of social responsibility, in my opinion, is that businesses must balance profits with activities, right? activities benefiting society, obviously, having different jobs and all of that, because obviously it's a massive industry and it employs a lot of people. That's fine. People need to work. Translated into the film industry, the idea that movies should not exist solely to make money. They must also have something to say, and this is something I also agree with, because many times movies like, I don't know, like MCU and like Disney movies and sort of like the Netflix and chill movies, like the silly comedies, usually they don't have anything to say, and their purpose is to just entertain you for an hour and a half, and that's fine. Those movies need to exist too, and movies with a social message need to exist as well, in my opinion. Okay. Hollywood's recent trend has embraced films with social, like a social conscious way. So, for example, a 2018 film Call Me by Your Name, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and Get Out. These stories focus on the relationship between two men. In the first one, a woman's search for justice over the death of her daughter in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And then a social satire on racism, Get Out. Get Out was written and directed by Jordan Peele, from Key and Peele, or P and Key, no, Key and Peele. Brilliant movie, that one as well. And they all made a fairly good amount of money, and they all did very well at the Oscars, obviously. Obviously, we had Black Panther that same year. That it was like groundbreaking box office smash superhero movie. Black Panther transcended the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Hollywood to become part of a wider conversation, which is all very good. It reveals the question: what do people want out of cinema? On the surface, the reason why people go to the movies is the same as has always been: a slice of escapism, a desire to avoid everyday reality, and includes, in some entertainment and just enjoy, basically. The compelling intimacy and anonymity of sitting in a darkened room full of strangers. It's just something different, and it's sort of like an event. Cinema's always been like that for me. You can watch a movie at home and all of that, and that's fine, but cinema is more like an event. Yes, you go for the movie, but you like, it's the people you go with, and it's sort of like a night out or a day out, for me anyway. So whatever the reason, moviegoers purchase their tickets. There is one undeniable constant: films provoke a reaction. Whether you hated it or loved it, the best films they want you to have an emotional response, and shouldn't that be enough? I don't know. So movies have always had a social message. And they've always tried to say something, and that's very good, in my opinion. But they also need to be a good movie, and this is what they have recently forgotten about. And with the rise of, like the weekly movies that Netflix puts out and all of that, sort of like quick entertainment and all of that, most of them they forget, and they're not good. They're just shit, most of them. So let's see a more recent example of quote unquote progressive woke movie that has a strong female protagonist, that she can be anything and she can do anything because she's a strong woman. Men in Black International. What a shit of a movie this was. It did not make any sense. I'll very quickly go through the synopsis of this movie. So we have Agent H, played by Chris Hemsworth, the Australian Thor guy. And then we have Agent, what's her name? H, played by Tessa Thompson. She's also in the MCU. And then we have Agent T, played by Liam Neeson. He shows up a couple of times in the movie. They go around looking for this device that some people have stolen, and it's the bad people of the movie, the bad aliens are called, the Hive. They can shapeshift and they can infect humans and stuff like that, and they have a device that's like a star that can explode. Very boring already. The way that Tessa Thompson gets in the Men in Black organization is completely stupid. She just follows them and she just gets in, and this is like the Men in Black organization. Like, this is the organization that's like super secret and no one can get in and all of that, and then she's able to do it because plot armor and because the plot needs her to do it. And then when she gets there, imagine, right, let's imagine, I know this is not for the villain, but I'm gonna talk about the villain in a minute anyway. But imagine if you break into the FBI or the CIA or whatever secret organization's headquarters, and then say that, I want you to hire me. What do you think will happen? They probably won't accept that, and probably you won't be allowed, and probably be, I don't know, imprisoned, or in that case, in that universe that they have the memory wiping devices, they would probably do that and then just move on about their day. But no, here they just give her the job because, I don't know, because she's been waiting for it her whole life and shit like that. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, spoiler alert, at the end we find out that Liam Neeson's character is a bad guy, and he was infected by the Hive or whatever, and his motives doesn't make any sense, and the whole thing doesn't make any sense, and it's just a shitty villain that just like it turns out to be a CGI monster at the end that they need to fight and they need to blast, and it's just, they didn't make any sense. And this movie has no character, this movie has nothing for it, and it's just, it's like this movie is like, you know, like if you have like different things that you need to do, so it ticks all the boxes, and that's it, which on paper sounds fine, but it's not. And then at some point they make that why is it called Men in Black? And then they're like, the agent in charge, she's a woman, and then she's like, I tried to change that so many times. I was like, what the fuck. So cringy. Another more recent sort of feminist movie, written and directed by Elizabeth Banks. She recently made the Ocean's 8 movie with Sandra Bullock. That was a shit movie as well, sort of like similar to what she made here. First of all, who wanted this movie? Who said that a failure of a remake in the early 2000s would make of a good movie in 2019? I don't know. So here, this is like the shittiest villain that you ever see. We have Jonathan John Bosley is the main antagonist of the 2019 American live-action film Charlie's Angels, and former ally to the Angels. He is a treacherous and lustful commander of the Townsend Agency who plots to use the Angels in order. This is his reason of why he's a villain, and this is his motivation of why he wants to do the things he wants to do in the movie, in order to achieve full control over Project Callisto. Project Callisto, or Callisto, is like a thing, a gimmick they have in the movie that is sort of like titanium or whatever it's called in the MCU, that it can be turned into anything, basically, so that he could become more powerful than his deceased superior Charlie Townsend ever was. That's his whole motivation. He wants to become more powerful. This is what I'm talking about, villain motivations. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. He's forced to retire in the movie, and he becomes this pathetic little shitty man, this pathetic little baby, all because they need to make Elizabeth Banks's character to look better and to look like she's a better Charlie or whatever in charge, and then she needs to look like she's more, like in control, and to look like, like women can be in control and all of that, and that's fine. But they say that your protagonist is only as good as the villain he's going against. If the villain's motivations are clear, and they make you think that maybe he's got a point, then the protagonist's role is to convince you that yes, maybe he does have a point, but that's not how you go about it. That's not, you don't go around and do everything on your own. Basically, it's like in the Joker, for example, you understand that he does have a point, that everything is going crazy and everything is going to shit and people don't care and all of that. He does have a point. But then what he does, and the movie makes it very clear, but then what he does is just gets a pistol and starts killing people. Yes, maybe you had a point, but the minute you started doing that, you lost all your point. And this is what this movie does wrong as well. It's just the villain, because he wants more power. Is that all? Is that why you want to destroy the world? Is that why you're willing to kill so many people? It just doesn't make any sense. And let's talk about the MCU again for a minute here. In Thor Ragnarok, for example, which is generally considered one of the better MCU movies, and it's sort of like a light-hearted comedy. The villain there is a woman. It's played by Cate Blanchett. And then when she is introduced at the start of the movie, she kicks the crap out of Thor and Loki together. That's fine. And then when Thor gets sort of like his power buff and his power upgrade and all of that, and it's time for him to sort of beat her, and this is Thor, who in Avengers Infinity War, he was able to almost kill Thanos, and then in Avengers Endgame he kills Thanos, right? This is Thor, one of the most powerful MCU characters that they've introduced, but obviously he can't be shown in a movie to beat a woman, because that would send the wrong message or whatever. So what they come up with like a get out of jail free card. So they just introduce this huge CGI monster, and that's fine, because no one will think nothing of that. So this is what I mean of, yes, do social commentary. Of course you have to do social commentary. It's a form of art. All forms of art have social commentary. Music, they always have the good music has something to say, because if it's a shitty trap song, then yeah, okay. But I don't know, like books and paintings and whatever form of art you think, they all have a message. But you can't sacrifice the art itself so you can send a message. It's amazing that you want to do a movie for female empowerment, but it's also very shitty that you want to have all other characters look weak and all of them look worse than your protagonist, because you can't find actual qualities for your protagonist. Example, Captain Marvel, at the end she just decides that she doesn't want to fight the villain, and it just doesn't make any sense. You have to make likable characters, and you have to make characters that you want to go with and characters that you want to follow. Think about Sarah Connor in Terminator 2. She is a badass of a character. That's how you do a female character. She doesn't need your help. She'll fucking kick your ass in a minute without even thinking about it. If she has to do something, she will do it. She's not gonna sit down and ask for help. That's how you do a good female character. And James Cameron did that 30 years ago. She has actual emotions. She is a human. She cries and she screams and she does all of that because that's what real women do. That's what real characters do. And for fuck's sake, she has real motivation. She needs to do she needs to protect her son. That's real motivation. Like, I do not understand how movies keep getting this wrong. All these feminist movies portray women that they are like invincible, that they're not real, they don't have real emotions and real weaknesses. That's how you make a real person. If you show their weaknesses and then you show them getting over the weaknesses, because everyone has weaknesses, men, women, whatever you identify as, you have weaknesses. Think about Wonder Woman, right? Don't think about the new Wonder Woman movie, but the first Wonder Woman. Her weakness is she thinks that all people are good and all of them they deserve a second chance, and all, everyone deserves something new, and she thinks that it's a god Ares who makes them evil. And the thing that she has to come to terms with is that maybe some people are just evil, and that's it, and maybe some people are not good and they're just bad, and that's it. There's nothing more to it. Amazing, great movie. I don't know how they fucked this up so bad in the second one. Right, we're almost in the half-hour mark, and this has been a great episode of the podcast. I really hope you have enjoyed it, and make sure to leave your comments down below if you're listening on YouTube, what you think about movie villains, what's your favorite movie villains, and let me know what you think about all these female-led movies and what they can do to make them better, really, because it seems like a lot of them are not very good. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you're on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and leave a like on the video. And if you're listening from anywhere else, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, make sure to follow there, because we have episodes coming up. Again, thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next one.